I would just welcome everyone. Chapter 9, The Harvest of Jealousy, and Alicia is leading today. Go ahead, Alicia.
Hi, yeah. Leading the questions. So this was a big book, a big chapter rather, and I struggled with reducing questions, but I chose just to do 3. So I'm starting with, as an example, this quote from page 89. Our clothing no longer possessed its delicate blue and pink tints, but had been changed to dark gray. Cushna then said, "This," he said, "is perhaps one of the most tender and beneficent provisions of our Father. Whoever comes to visit or minister to one of the friends located here experiences this transformation upon nearing the end of their journey. The object is to enable us to meet on apparently equal terms by preventing them from knowing the difference in our condition, and thus to enable us to give them the greater assistance. As you will soon discover in the case of Marie, the state of all at this point of development is one that requires the most careful and sympathetic treatment." And then it goes on later. "The only means by which they can be aroused from this state of lethargy is by association with the messengers from the hills of wisdom who inspire the feeble confidence of these needy ones by the assurance of the realization of that hope they have gained." So my question to everybody is, what other provisions and qualities that we could develop are mentioned or demonstrated throughout the chapter? So it perhaps wasn't so easy to answer. You had to read the whole chapter to find those out. So I don't know if anybody would like to jump in and give any ideas and thoughts that have come up for them.
Well, we can also talk about what has been done so far with the changing of the clothing, the way the house, like how does all of that?
Yeah, and including that, yes. Selena?
I think my favorite thing that's been provided is that she can see, I guess it's Cushna, is it his home or it's the hospital? She can see like where she had a recovery, like she can see it, like he deliberately put her there so she can see it. And that just, it's a couple of things. It gives her so much hope. Like that's where I belong someday. I just have to get through these things, but I belong there eventually when I'm suited to it. And that Cushna believes in her.
Yeah.
That he believes in her. Like that's like the faith, you know, that he has in her ability to recover. And I just love that she gets to go out there and look at it every day and know that someday Cushna's gonna come and get her and take her back, you know, and she'll belong there then, like that. And maybe even work there or something, you know, she'll have a place there, not just a patient. Yeah.
I know, I'm trying to remember if she was looking at where she came from, where she received the treatment, when she finally surrendered to being treated. That was home, like the home of rest. But then his other home where the kids are has got to be there as well. So yeah, it was a way of reminding her of that care she received and how it felt. But then, as you said, Selena, maybe the home she's going to go to is also in that valley.
Yeah. That, well, like, and even when he came, it's like this. Now, are you taking me now? I think she says something about that. Like,
and the fact that she can see him coming across the valley. She can. She's on the watch for when's he going to come?
When he comes.
So it's hope and inspiration that she has to.
Do you think maybe he took Afra the hard way? Because that doesn't sound like somebody flying across the valley to me, working their way through that. It's all like there's some kind of lesson in there of them thrashing their way through the forest, but I don't really know what it is.
Exactly. So what is that lesson? What is going on? Because Afra wants to learn, how is this whole thing set up? So he's seeing the mechanics. It's like, you know, when you take the studio tour of Disney World and you go to the back rows and under. So what is happening?
Maybe like a protection, sort of almost like a fortress. Like nobody's going to come through here because it's difficult. So she's being protected. So that's actually just occurred to me, another provision. because they can all, obviously the ones that are beyond her can just fly across the valley, but the people that she's terrified of that were fighting, the darker spirits, maybe they couldn't possibly get through to her.
And as it says in there, it uses the word safeguards. So this whole setup is a safeguard. Right. So it's showing Afra that she's not just put anywhere, she's put so she can see Cushna's home, so she's got hope and inspiration, but also that, as you said, that other people can't find it so
and
easily.
She knows she's safe.
Yes, exactly. She can see that.
She obviously has not felt safe before, but now she does.
Any other ones that particularly touch somebody?
Lisa?
Oh yes, sorry, I didn't see Lisa.
I was just gonna say that that home, I just happened to be listening to Mary's second book group on this because they did 2 sessions. It is one of Cushna's many homes. It's his home in the first sphere where Marie and those he's attending to are. So she's looking on his home as inspiration. But I was also going to just mention, it says, the garden, the grounds, and the general arrangement offered every inducement for the exercise and development of the mind, with abundant scope to wean the heart from sorrow, in congenial and ever varying employment. It's like it just feels like a nest for her that's very safe, hidden away, so that her pursuers and predators aren't going to be able to find her. And I can very much relate to her state of being. I feel very much similar. Like, I need a place like that. When I was reading it, I was really drawn by the description. I felt like, oh, I want a place that's like that. Like, just, it feels like there's a lot of stimulation around that's very safe and loving and nurturing, but encouraging of her to come back to life, to be revived.
And it's interesting, as we were mentioning about, is she including God or not, or is she in the natural love path at this stage? That it particularly emphasizes the development of the mind and then weaning to the heart. It's not like straight to the heart, it's weaning, like trying to draw her to the heart. So that gives me a little more evidence that she's not including God in this at the moment. It's more the cause and effect that she's
and the fact that she has to recount her story over and over again to each visitor that comes. It's the slow wearing and grinding of the laws of compensation that she's engaging right now, which is for me why it was so excruciating to read her story in this chapter. It's really intense.
She's already done the compensation for the jealousy. She's already done. She got stuck, which is a conversation that we're going to have in the next chapter. And now it's about her having been given the courage to move on from it, to recover, because sin damages your soul. Like, whether it's, so she's now a damaged, broken patient. She's a patient that needs to be recovered. And I really appreciated that to the celestial spirits. It doesn't matter if you were the sinned or the sinner. You are damaged and you need to be helped to recover, to be healed. You deserve healing, regardless of which end you were at.
And at this point, her fear of what had happened before is too high for her to quite to recover yet, to move on. Selena, you wanted to share something?
I'm just wondering also if all of these precautions for her safety isn't because she could be because her shame is so intense that she could be very easily sucked back into negative influencing spirits that want control over her, and she would actually maybe feel she deserves it. So this feeling of being protected and safeguarded and by everyone is acknowledging that she needs it, and also, well, for her to acknowledge that she needs it. This is she's very vulnerable to attack from negative spirits and really needs from that pull.
And it's interesting because there's a part in there where Afra's observing and seeing the two, Azina and Marie, and seeing the phantoms. I think he uses the word phantoms around and
That's
there's
right.
this battle going on between
Mhm.
dark and light. It's like that.
So
Yeah.
it's almost like maybe like when you're in that terrible raging thing, it's not that, but it's when you really need protection is when you get into that shame and guilt, and that's when you can really go backwards, kind of like, because you're so overwhelmed by those emotions, and you feel like you deserve it.
And it's like by the time the law of compensation is done with you, now you move into self-punishment. And it's like,
Yes.
oh, it's done.
Yeah.
There's no need for
Yeah.
this. So
But it also makes you very vulnerable. So they're protected her from that
they had to
possibility.
convince her to even accept it, which is what Azina was saying about the Cushna's, like that personal battle he took on to convince her to even receive this protection. How hard it was to get her to even
And
get
and then, oh, sorry, Selena. Then when she is resting, and how he doesn't want to even leave her because he's afraid that she could go back into this. Yeah.
Mhm. And it just also shows to me how vulnerable we are also, which is something I've been working with when we wallow in self-judgment, shame, guilt. We're really vulnerable, more vulnerable than when we're just raging and just being arrogant and all of those things. I think then we're even more vulnerable, to attack.
self-forgiveness.
Yeah.
In the 2012 talk on love of self, Jesus said that self-forgiveness is like a law. It's a law to forgive yourself. Yeah.
Like it's a sin to punish yourself in any way.
Not only that, but to actually forgive yourself. And I think you mentioned something about law of mercy towards yourself. And when you can't let go of somebody else's behavior that keeps irritating you, is because you haven't given mercy to yourself for the same behavior. So that's something I'm trying to deepen into.
And it feels very, forgiveness and repentance for ourselves feels, it's like it's a part and parcel of the same thing. Like I want to repent for the fact that I've been harming myself.
That's a really good point.
Well, one of the things that I loved in this was that obviously she's in solitude here. In fact, some of these things go on to, of course, what we can be doing for ourselves, and also into the next question, which is around about how we're actually choosing to live and what we've created for ourselves in the way of our living. So it all seems to merge together, actually, these two. So Virginia, I can't remember who was first. Virginia, anyway.
I just have a question while we're chatting there. What is it about shame that makes us so vulnerable?
Lisa? Go ahead, Lisa.
Well, I think our shame and our guilt and our self-judgment, as Selena just pointed out, they're all states where we haven't fully gone through the repentance forgiveness process. And so we're still in a potentiality of, there's a inward kind of, oh shoot, I've done something wrong and it's wrong in me and I feel it. And so there's a tendency to still feel the law acting on me, knowing there's something out of harmony in me. So it's that point where spirits can really come in. I don't know, maybe that's just exactly what Selena was saying, but that's what I'm very aware of this right now. So I'm glad to be reminded of it.
Are we in that space when those emotions, are we also self-attacking? I'm just trying to work this.
I think so.
Yeah.
And a super heavy chapter for me to get through. So I just want to really understand, because it's just brought up a lot of stuff for me, and I just want to understand why it does feel vulnerable. And I think that's why the emotions get avoided. But I just understand why. So it is it also brings in that self-attack. So when you do that, other spirits will attack you.
Oh yeah.
I feel it has a link with anger, that I'm being the attack is like then shame is like I'm being angry with myself. In that, this feels like some deep anger in shame to me.
So my prayer for myself, or my desire for myself, is how do I treat myself the way God is treating me as a sinner? How do I love the sinner? Which is why I did those workshops, because I realized this is a big crossing point. So the goal I have is I got to treat me the way God is treating me as a sinner. I need to be in harmony with God. And that way I started to become more sensitive to how I'm not in harmony, so that I can then receive guidance, instruction, advice, sensitivity on how to do it.
And
So
this is what sorry, Mila, this is what we're shown a lot in this chapter about the provisions God made, that Marie's been treated very tenderly, angelically tenderly, with sympathy, with empathy, with compassion, with patience. Like there's all these feelings that she's being treated with, that are showing us how we could be treating ourselves to help ourselves heal, and that's how God is treating us.
So basically my perspective is that if you have sin in your soul, doesn't matter if you were the one that received it or did it, you have an injury, you're broken, and God, the healer, wishes to heal those injuries. So once the law of compensation is over, you got to see yourself as a patient. And many times I've said, actually, God, I'm a patient right now with the sin in me. Can I get some care? Please, can I go to the hospital? Because that gives me permission to be treated as a patient. I have an injury. I'm damaged. Please heal me. And I think that's the perspective I'm having myself right now, is I'm seeing sinners as patients that needs care. And that softens me towards them and towards myself.
Yeah, and one of the things that I can't remember who's, it's maybe Azina saying, when Afra asks her about, how can you, how is this heaven? Like, but the condition, it's not the locality, it's the condition that you're in, and the fact that you have this gift to be able to help take away the clouds of somebody else. Yeah.
How wonderful Azina's feeling in herself.
Yeah.
Because I think she's there with her all the time.
Yes, it's like devotion. In fact, it says twice around devotion. Cushna was devoted to Marie. Now Azina's devoted to Marie. Yeah, it's beautiful. Does that feel clearer, Virginia? Yeah. Michael, go.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, back. I think, Mila, I'm paraphrasing you from the 2012 talk. Did you say Jesus says that if you can't forgive another, you haven't forgiven yourself?
That wasn't the mercy component, but yeah, basically, yes, the forgiveness is, he said, yes, he did say, you can't forgive another until you've forgiven yourself for that sin. Okay. And then he said that you'll keep getting, your law of attraction will keep, I don't know how he put it, but something about, as you haven't grieved and have mercy for yourself, you'll keep getting annoyed by the other person doing the same thing. This is the love of self-talk. I don't know what year it is. Could have been 2009, 2010, but it's the love of self.
So it's like a little flag that pops up when somebody that does something that aggravates me, it's really in me.
I haven't forgiven myself for that. And that's why I'm still continuously being mad at that other person. I just can't let it go. Okay. I've had mercy for myself.
I think we can all relate to that.
And then there were a couple other, I'll be quick. You were wondering, had she found God yet at this point, or turned to God?
Selena, but Selena hand is up. So let's give her the room. She's got some stuff to say about that. Thank you, Michael.
Okay. Because I certainly think she's still Well, because they actually do say that she's fulfilled her compensation, but yet it does seem to me like she's still compensating by having to relive her story over and over and over. But she's not asking for God's help, because she wouldn't, I mean, the way I understand it, if you are praying to God, you just feel like a big load, like she's kind of feeling her repentance little by little, by little, by little, each time a little bit less, little bit less, little bit less, until it's gone. But if she was praying, I would think it would just be gone. If she was just praying for divine love every day, but she maybe has feelings about God. And so this is the process that they're doing with her, because that's what she's willing to do. Or
yeah, and God's not mentioned in this chapter at all, as far as she's
no,
concerned.
that's right.
And it's
Not in this
interesting
chapter,
because
no.
at the very end, Cushna said, well, when Cushna comes along, you can see he's gratified that she's fallen and she's sleeping. He's gratified because she's been through this emotional turmoil in sharing.
And it's like, oh man, I'm glad that's over with. And here Azina is doing this, I don't know, maybe even more than once a day, or like how, like continuously, and yet she's just has so much love in her that she wants to. Like, I can't even imagine doing that. I listen to people's repeated stories all the time. So I get what that's like. 2 hours is plenty.
But that's interesting. So they're not, well, in this chapter at least, they're not pushing God onto her. So they're waiting till she has a desire and asks about.
You're making this way too hard. They're not saying that, So what it reminds me of, this whole safeguarding thing, is Jesus, when he talks about giving somebody feedback, and he sometimes almost doesn't want to, because he knows they're going to go down a deep dark hole. And I think it, and actually really suffer even more painful consequences, and I wonder if that's why, if that's because they go into more self-punishment and stuff, and that's why that happens.
And why they're not bringing up God?
Well, they're deteriorating after he talks to them, after he speaks some truth to them. They deteriorate, often physically, with their health, because, and I'm wondering if it's the same thing as what they're trying to protect her from being in this place of remorse and stuff like that. I'm just kind of wondering.
I feel, well, I know, because I had that I went into being ill, for example, but I know for myself that it was my resistance.
Mm-hmm.
It was deep resistance. And I think it's very easy to go in, that we can go into self-punishment and self-judgment because of something that Jesus has told us.
Because I feel like she still is in self-punishment and self-judgment.
Yes.
The way she talks about herself. I mean,
Yeah.
she's not forgiving herself. She's not, so she's.
Okay, so we're getting a little bit frazzled. So
a little bit. Yeah, it's getting a little
distracted,
unfocused.
What exactly is your question, Selena? What exactly are you asking?
I just wonder if anybody else feels that there's a similarity between her state and what happens when Jesus gives feedback and people deteriorate, sometimes for long periods of time, if there's some type of sort of correlation in that.
Okay.
In staying in one sort of wallowing in a place, kind of wallowing in one place.
Okay, so we need to clarify quite a few things here. So Alicia, if you don't mind, I'm just trying to expand here. So when Jesus gave me feedback, I had 9 months of agony. It was agony. And I just said to myself, whatever happens, stay in the pain. That was the only choice I could make. I made it. It was awesome. I came out of it so much lighter. So what I believe happened was that I accepted the truth, and then the law of compensation kicked in, and I went through kind of like a period, like something was being removed from me, and that was okay. But yes, when the truth is exposed, Jesus has noticed that the bigger the resistance, I think what he said was that then the bigger the drop in the health. So that's one thing. And we're just guessing here. Hopefully we get clarification from Jesus what really goes on. Now, where Marie is at, has dealt with her love compensation on the jealousy. And I think from what I remember from Mary's conversation about this was that in each retelling, she's actually grieving another piece of her, like she's not telling the same story. It always has a slightly different emotional exposure that is helping it to be released. And then when something is released, then because she's still in a hospital setting, she can be restored. Like there's still exposure restoration. And that this is what it's like. Like I'm coming out of the addiction to dominate, which is still not over. And it's been 4+ months, slowly coming back out, slowly. I'm really tired. I'm much softer, but like I can't even walk fast. The convalescence is so slow. And there's so much energy around me of forgive yourself, forgive yourself, forgive yourself, over and over and over, to even get me to repent, because the self-punishment is so bad. So I think I am kind of where she's at, and I understand why it's so slow. I understand, and how much danger it can be. And I also kind of feel like that is what it needs to be. So, Selena, are you feeling that? Are you scared or nervous or grieving for how difficult his condition is? Are you feeling about how slow it's going? Like, what is that? What's happening for you?
Yeah, that. Yeah, how
Oh.
slow it's going. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Why does it take so
Yeah,
long?
like is it actually happening? Is it just slow, or am I wallowing in it? Like, what's going on here?
Okay, so the judgment.
You know, if I just hit that wall, got some truth, hit a wall, and I'm just standing
Ouch.
at that wall.
Okay.
Ouch. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you're judging yourself, that when you're allowing your story, you're allowing yourself to remember things and feel emotion, you're judging yourself for wallowing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel, oh, sorry, you
Go ahead,
had some.
Alicia.
I feel also, I'm not in relation to Selena, but in relation to Marie, that a part of her is not really taking responsibility for her emotions. I can't really expand upon that, but it feels like because she's not taking responsibility, it's more difficult for her to be helped from others somehow. It's like they're there and they're holding a space for her. They've created a perfect refuge for her. They're very sympathetic, tender, but somehow they can't get in and help her more because some part of her doesn't want to take responsibility for her emotions.
I feel like disagreeing at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like that the level of injury the soul experiences from this kind of damage, you really are like that, slowly coming back to life. That's just what sin does to our soul. And that we need to have that level of compassion and slow and trusting the timing and the speed, and every step is done delicately and slowly to rebuild you back. I think there's an intelligence.
I'm not doubting that. In fact, it even says about how later on says how absolutely everything is perfect. I can't remember the words exactly. It says how everything is perfect, but I have a feeling that I'm not saying it as a judgment to her. I'm saying it as she's not aware of even being that would help her to be more aware of these are my emotions and that I have to feel them.
Well,
I feel like Lisa Lisa has something to share around it.
But I'd like to clarify before we move on. So if she was being responsible for her emotion, what will be different in this chapter? Because she is, from what I'm feeling, she's willing to let herself surrender and even collapse in surrendering to her emotions. So what's going on?
That's why I just feel like Lisa has something in clarity to this. That's why I was wanting to go to her.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, but also I'm aware that Michael has gotten cut off twice. You were gonna ask a question the last time and we kind of switched to Selena, and also you just had your hand up. I feel like it would be Michael's turn for right now, and I will clarify what I want to, but Michael, did
Let me
you?
just step back because the flow's gone to you, Lisa. I'm good with that.
Yeah, no, just the sense I get from Marie is of she wasn't on earth, she didn't make choices that helped her develop her self-responsibility. So she's in this state almost like she's been an overspoiled kid that did really bad choices. And it's not a judgment of her, it's just saying where she's at. And as a result, these laws of cause and effect have had to work on her and grind her and work on her and grind her. If she decided, you know what, I've got this in me, I need to get this out. What can it feels like if she used her intention with a real clear um, intentionality, it could go so much faster for her. And my question is actually, where is room for God's repentance in this? Like, she's not choosing to engage it. So isn't it true that when you're at the effects of law and cause, the law of consequences, it's the not responsible path. It's the lack of self-responsibility way that she's being pushed upon by still these things in her and by her environment needing to nurture and encourage her. And there's a lack of self-responsibility inherent in that, I feel.
Ouch, 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 ouch.
Yeah, I don't disagree that she needs to go through that slow process at the moment. I just felt like she's not aware yet that these are hers to deal with.
So
Yeah, and it's
so
not a judgment of her. I'm not judging her. I'm just stating where she's at and that it could be faster.
so that's the judgment. It could be
Hmm.
faster. She's being a burden that she needs so much care and attention from people. If only she was more independent, more self-responsible, she wouldn't have needed to become such a burden on everybody else around her. These are the judgments.
Who said burden? Who's
I'm not
implied
saying
burden?
burden, but
No, you
Mila,
didn't say burden. You
yeah.
didn't say burden. That's my perspective
Your feeling,
on
yeah.
hearing how you're describing. If only she was this, then she wouldn't need so much care. If only she was that, then she wouldn't need so much time.
I
The care
feel
is beautiful that she's receiving, and she definitely deserves it, but she could take more upon herself, but because of her nature, she hasn't developed her self-responsibility. And as a result, it's a longer, slower process for her right now, where she needs to engage with the environment that's very lovingly supporting her. So it's not a judgment of her, but it is saying there's a lack of self-responsibility inherent in her current condition that she didn't develop, and this is where she's at and where we see her in the book.
she's
Not
just not aware of it at the moment. I mean,
Yeah.
and they know that she's not aware of it, but they're not pushing it upon her. They're instead taking care of her and just waiting for when she might be ready, but she's obviously not ready yet. And they're being very loving and tender with her to help her in that direction. So let's, unless Mila wants to say something else.
I'm gonna let go my point. I see the conflict, and I go, but it's God can find a different way to bring it across.
Okay. Okay, let's go to Michael. His hand's gone down, but I know it was up. He didn't get away with that.
Mila, were you just trying to suggest to Lisa that what she was describing as Marie's state was something that she feels about herself and her approach to her soul's growth? And the burden and being responsible for her emotions and her soul development and things like that.
If only I had gotten it, I would have been faster. If only I had done this other thing, I would have been better. If only I have, those are her judgments.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. Thank you, Michael. And okay, so that's what you're trying to name. I thought you were feeling reactive to it, Mila, because you're trying to be extra tender to your hurt child. So I didn't know if it was your reaction or, but that's what you were feeling. And me is off of being like overly harsh on myself because I very much identify with where Marie's at. But I'm also seeing that, hey, I can take self-responsibility now. I can I can really more fully say, I am the one responsible for all my emotions, and I could engage God in this process. And yes, it's going to be super more painful, but quicker to
But
go
your
through
guides,
repentance.
but your guides are going to come in and help you with it. They are going to come surround you. They are going to come hold your hand. They are going to come give you a hug while you're going through it.
Oh,
That is the
definitely.
process.
Yeah, but she's not, there's a lack of self-responsibility was the main thing we were talking about that I just felt to name in Marie, that there's not the level of developed self-responsibility she could have that would make the process easier and quicker for her. And especially if she chose to involve God.
Why is there a need for things to be quicker?
Because well, I think I'm feeling similar to Selena in that it's excruciating to read about her having to tell this story over and over again. And it
Okay.
makes me cringe.
Okay.
I just want to
So
get out of
That's
it.
the point.
earlier today, I had to lie in bed and cry about how sad I am with how tough it was for her.
Oh, that's so
Grief.
beautiful.
There's
Yeah.
grief of I'm so sorry and how tough it was for her.
Yeah.
That's the grief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet. I'm just frustrated. I'm like, just get on with it. Come on.
Okay. And yet when I had that approach to myself, I wasn't getting anywhere. But when I stopped, now I'm getting somewhere. So yeah. So there's something there. If you can, yeah. Thank you. Go ahead, Mike.
Michael?
She seems to me like a bar of iron that's in a forge, heated red hot, and she's slowly withdrawn and begins to feel the pain lessening, and then something else triggers her and she's thrown back in, and this is happening over and over again.
That helps her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that helps.
And just in telling this, I know, I'm wondering what did Cushna tell her the purpose of talking to Fred would be?
It's in the next chapter, I think.
Oh, okay.
It's explained in the next chapter that each retelling helps to connect to another layer of emotion that can then she surrender into and collapse again.
Because even, you know, like even amongst ourselves, if I tell you a story, the same story that I told Selena, that I tell Michael, I'm telling it in a slightly different way, probably because that's a different personality. And so each time I imagine that she's healing another facet of the injury that she has, the pain that she has.
If you're sharing yourself, you are feeling emotion as you're sharing.
As you're sharing, yes,
if you're in
exactly.
the listen to me addiction,
yeah,
there are no emotions. There's difference.
So I see her entering into her conversation with Fred with some trepidation because she knows what's going to happen. She knows she's going to be put back in the fire, but she willingly goes there. And at the end of her story, before she collapses in exhaustion, she's crying for mercy. She's asking hell for mercy to let me in.
Yeah.
And I don't see her yet feeling God's love, but I could see Cushna coming back to her, or Azina, and saying, when she says, where was God, you know, when I was going through this, and he'll say, his mercy was all around her at this point, you know.
I mean, they're all there because of God.
Yeah. And she's just so raw. I don't, you know, there's no time, Lisa, in the spirit world. So, but she's in the now, and all this is happening. And so she's in the place where she's totally submitted to it, not thinking about going through faster or more efficiently, but letting herself be guided. And what a blessed condition.
And that's another beautiful provision that this place of refuge has created, that it's not in the past, it's not in the future, it's keeping her present with what's in her at this moment in time. Yeah.
And that when we are going through recovery, we need to have the same level of patience for how long it's going to take us, how long it's taking me right now. And interestingly, even though I do all kind of FAQ with God and I talk to God and this and that and this and that, when I am in that place of facing what I've done, we don't talk. I'm like, we're not talking right now. And then my guides will go, what happened to your conversation with God? I'm not talking to God right now. Like I even forget God exists in that place of pain. And this is somebody that
and she's been through this huge agony. And now when we each of us go through bawling and the emotions come up, personally for me, I need to rest. And that's what she's doing. She's been through this huge agony and now needs to just let go and surrender. But she's still going through the process of letting go of some things. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Lisa.
Yeah, okay, it's hitting me now. Because what you described, Mila, of going through the 4 months of you can't even walk quickly, like physically, it's even impacting you as you're coming out of this time of sin and you're in the process of healing from it. Yeah, I too have that, but there's a part of me that's always kicking myself, like feeling like I'm lazing around is what I told Alicia on Zoom the other day. Like I'm having all this space and time, but sometimes I'm not like working actively like through emotions, but I'm also needing to sleep, like after releasing fear. So yeah, I'm having a harshness towards myself. I'm seeing that. That's helpful to just to try to remember the environment around her, including having a minister with her of Azina all the time on hand, lovingly tending and being a companion. So like my spirit guide could be that if I allowed her more. It's really beautiful, actually. I'm getting this gentle, like, yeah, okay, I'm waking up to what the harshness is.
And it's a necessary physiological step for your soul.
Yeah.
And then as I'm connecting to my real nature, it's a very young, tender self that needs even more protection so that I can be like a preschooler that is trying to experiment with how to express my real self. Is very gentle, and I can feel the addiction calling, and I can feel people around me wanting me to go back to that person, and I have to go, no. So Alicia's question was, how can we provide this for ourselves? What would that look like for all of you?
So a couple of things that are coming up for me now being remembering is how, in the first little paragraph we read was that the robes change color. So basically for me, they're diminishing themselves, that they're humbling themselves. So that humbling ourselves to our emotions, to somebody else as well, and feeling like we're an equal. They are feeling like they're an equal with her. She just has stuff to go through. And also I love the well of silence, like so much was said within the well of silence, and just taking that time for ourselves to be quiet. And there's an action in that to take that time.
Beautiful.
Unrestrained devotion to ourselves.
I love that.
Wait, say that.
Unrestrained devotion, that's from the book, but to ourselves, I'm thinking, to ourselves.
I call it attending to myself.
Yeah.
So there are different words that and what that action looked like. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, beautiful. So do you feel like we want, I mean, I know that we could keep talking. Let's move on. I feel so. So let's move on. So we're on question 2 and page 90, a little quote here. The garden, grounds, and general arrangement offered every inducement for the exercise and development of the mind, with abundant scope to wean the heart from sorrow in congenial, ever-varying employment. The house was not a large building. Such a one would have been out of character in these surroundings, but it was exceedingly cheerful and picturesque, a mountain home engaged for the purpose of repose and restoration, with everything provided to make one forget the past and care nothing for the future. So we've already covered this a little bit, but what I asked was, how is God's care for you helping you grow in your present living condition? I didn't mean just your physical home, or, I mean just your environment generally and what you've created for yourself. So anyone like to jump in?
It could also be what God is trying to invite and create for you, if you could get the hint and let it and meet it halfway.
Totalmente, yes. Is it too much to bite off? No, Lisa's going for it.
Well, when Mila added on that extra question, that helped. I feel here I am in the middle of the desert. I came out here to be close to Jen and to Julian to get out of Robin and Tom's hair because I had overstayed my welcome there. Even though I still really, in my heart, would love to be closer to Robin, maybe in the future. Anyway, so here I am. And then I wasn't talking to Julie and Jen for most of the time because we've been going through our stuff. So it's been it's a desert, it's isolated. I have my students that come, yes, but mostly it's me with me. And I'm telling you, it's the nitty gritty, grungy pain of what is just me. And so I can really relate to Marie and her throngs of pain, because I don't feel I've felt through as much gunk. It feels just very gunky lately inside of me, just having to be with deep, hopeless, what am I doing? There's nothing in my life. Those kind of feelings are surfacing and coming out and up. So I think that's actually a very loving provision to remove a lot of my addictions with people interactions, and having a job that I go to every day where I can just get certain things met through that kind of people thing. So I'm turning to food still and whatever, but mostly it's just me with my stuff. So I guess that's, right now I'm grumpy about it, but I'm sure it's very loving. I'm sure it's loving and it's good.
Yeah.
If you could see yourself as a patient, what would you provide? Considering that you're a patient, not a sinner that's got to face what she's done, but a patient that needs to recover, the soul needs to recover from the damage of sin.
You know what? I have bouts of being very gentle and letting myself just watch kind of like Anne with an E on Netflix and drink cherry smoothies and be kind of a kid. Like I never really felt at ease in my home. So I'm letting myself, just as I'm recuperating, play a bit and be very gentle and take naps when I need to. And then of course, do tutoring as I need for a few hours, but not much. So yeah, thank you. It's a good reminder that it's really the gentleness is the direction we need to go. Like absolute loving care. I could envision Azina being like, what would it be like if I was in Azina's care right now, or my guide's care, which I am.
Yeah, that's what Mila's covering, that second question about what can you improve. That's really about that. And it's reminding me of how in that one, I can't remember which chapter it was now, but how it's one question at a time. So one addiction, one desire, one experiment, one action, one something, and it's giving time and space to be able to focus on that more fully and integrate it more than just touching the surface.
Yeah. When I'm in resistance, though, I don't really want to do anything. So I'm just trying to be true to that. It's like, I'm just going to sit. I'm not going to go run around towards anything right now. I'm just going to feel I don't really want to move forward right now.
But you can observe that. You don't have to rush off to go and do something.
Well, the one thing I'm saying to myself is a lack of gentleness that created my harshness. So lack of gentleness now is not going to cure it. So maybe if I try being really gentle with myself, would that cure the very thing that if I'd had it, wouldn't have created the sin? So that's my experimentation with myself, just to see if it works, to try and see. and I'm liking the results so far. So you literally just have to say, you know what, I'm going to take a risk and just walk around forgiving myself every 5 seconds, see what it does. And then if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And then you start to see the biggest change possible in the past 8 years. And you're like, oh, okay, found it.
Yeah, I think
I
we're
did.
often trying to work hard at things instead of just allowing things. Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Lisa, Mila. Anyone else like to share anything? No? That's a no from Michael. How about Virginia? No. Selena.
I go through a process of every thought that's not loving. I just say I accept. I just accept that about myself. That's really working for me. I've been really happy. Yeah, oddly enough. So laughing more, I don't know, it just seems everything's just a little easier. Yeah. And I'm just accepting. Yep, I'm accepting that I'm angry at this person, you know, that, and I'm going to get through that. I'm going to get to where that's not happening anymore. Just going to keep feeling it. Yeah. But it's the acceptance of it, not, oh man, I shouldn't be feeling that. Yeah. You know, and then going through all the reasons why I shouldn't, you know, because that person definitely doesn't deserve it and it's obvious.
And do you feel that your environment is helping you be able to do that?
My environment.
The environment that you've created, that God's helped you create this, is that helping you to be able to come into this place of just accepting everything, or it doesn't make any difference?
No. I don't know. Like, I don't know if environment, like I get,
I mean, in relationship,
lots of attractions, my attractions, you know, assistance that I get and stuff like that. Yeah. It's helping me with that.
I'm just looking at just generally for everybody that this place has been found by Cushna. This area is perfect for Marie to heal within. So there's this perfect place of refuge that's been created for her to be able to heal. So that's why I was asking about, well, how is, even though our environments can at first seem like, shit, what am I doing here?
Yeah,
we can
but
feel
I think it's a little different in Earth life, I think. But I think you just start to not do things that you know aren't helpful for you, or not let things that, oh, I should be doing that, or, you know, like worries about money and things like that interfere with the things that I really need to do for my soul progression.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So that's kind of environment that I'm creating. Like I just have lines. I just have faith that it'll all work out. I just have lines around what I need to do to keep helping my soul progression.
Yeah. Knowing that, because this is a beautiful thing, knowing that that's provided for when we're there.
And it's the front burner, not the back burner.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So no one else want to add anything? I shall share something if not. I have not the same as Lisa's situation, but I have a situation where I'm pretty much on my own, and I just have a couple of people who I'm friends with here, who are true friends. And but I've noticed that over the last few years, for me, is that it's created the environment where I'm more aware of my stuff. I'm more aware of my resistances, my denials, I'm more aware of community as in the spirit world, and the help that's coming and connecting with God. So that's become my community, because I chose to not be in the community that I was connected with here, and realize, oh, but I have a bigger community in a way, like a more enjoyable community actually. So it gives me time and space to connect to that more. So that's one of the things for me. And also it feels like where I've been put I thought there was no way I could afford to be where I am, but I saw it and saw that I have a vast view. And for me, somehow I felt limited, but when I saw the vast view, I felt like, oh, but this is creating a space, a sanctuary. It's like it's like a cave with a beautiful view, and that I can expand from here, from this cave with a beautiful view, if that makes sense. But yeah, I feel like our environment here on Earth can make a difference to us. But as you said, Selena, I didn't in the beginning of being in this place I am now, but now I'm much more having a lot more faith that I know that as long as I'm focusing on being responsible or being more aware of my emotions that are creating things, the more I know that my month's rent will get paid somehow, even though I don't know how, but it does.
Yeah, and my daughter's been here this week, and one thing, she left her meds at home. So she's been a little bit all over the place. But what I've realized is how, like, really, really understand how people want to keep you where they want you. Like,
yeah,
you know, constant feelings of judgment, criticism, and I'm not ever taking anything seriously now. I'm not, you know, things like that, you know, like the constant sort of attack from her. And I go, finally today, she's just like a really depressed and really a downer and really wants me to be there with her. I'm going, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. Yeah. Like, she really wants, I'm just going to be me. I'm going to laugh, and I'm going to, because I'll laugh and she'll go, well, that wasn't that funny. You shouldn't laugh at that. Like I'm being insensitive or something. I'm kind of, well, I'm over it. Yeah. I actually feel pretty good, and I don't need to be where you are.
I think that's a great point. I think that's partly why I maybe didn't do it that consciously, and I didn't realize until afterwards, but that's why I sort of pulled out of some community things, because it was all like temporary entertainment or temporary happiness instead of working on the long-term stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing, Selena.
Yeah, I don't know if I put it really clearly, but yeah, it feels good to feel I feel like more and more released from that feeling of your children wanting you to be where they want you to be.
Yeah.
Place that they see you as being non-threatening to them, you know.
And coming to their level in a way of commiserating, and isn't it terrible? It's okay. Well, if nobody else wants to share, yes, Mila does.
No, sorry. The third question is a good question, so let's give it some time.
Yeah, definitely. It's a biggie. So I haven't picked out anything from this because it's such a big story and there's so much in there. But my focus, I decided to put my focus on, well, what feelings do you have, and have you had feelings of jealousy and revenge and all of that stuff, either yourself towards others or from others towards yourself? And maybe you have an example you want to share, or something that's come up, I have for me, in the law of attraction for yourself. So maybe somebody would like to share some feelings.
Basically, the question is, considering how much damage Marie did in jealousy, and then you're going, oh God, is that me? How is that me? How much of that is me? It brings up the, oh boy, and what's going to happen to me because I have those feelings? You know, what comes up for you seeing that is me? Because that's what I did. I'm like, oh shoot, that's me. Now what? So what comes up for all of you around that, if it applies?
So, Miss Lisa.
Oh yeah, this is a big injury in me, and I was really grappling with it today in terms of getting ready for book group. Just this, I still am beating myself up and feeling very ashamed for my level of competition and jealousy that I have, and lack of love, especially towards my sisters. And so it's just strengthening the prayer in me to God, like, can you help me release the cause of this so I stop doing this? I don't want to do this anymore. I want to, obviously, other people feel loving when they're being of support and love to one another. So I must have something wrong in me, some false beliefs in me. Can you help me with this, please, God? So I have a lot of, I need to be careful not to go into the self-attack around this. Like just to say, okay, good, I'm seeing it. I'm letting it come up as it surfaces in interactions with people. And just to name it and go, okay, God, I haven't gotten the root out of what's causing this yet. Can you please help me with that part so that it can get pulled out of me so I stop doing this? Obviously, I'm feeling more loving towards women.
And there's a part of course, that's in that in-between stage of a part of me really wants to move through this and find the course, but I'm still in it. So a part of me actually doesn't want to move out of it. Part of me is still there.
Yeah, and I'm scared to feel the causes because when I started sincerely praying that today, then the causes started being shown to me, images, and I was like, oh, frick, I don't want to feel those emotions, but I don't want to keep sinning. This feels yucky. I want to learn to love my sisters, but oh, shoot, I have to feel that. That's really core, like it's really intense what's in there. So anyway, yeah.
And also, in order to move through the emotion, you got to own the emotion. You got to let yourself emotionally feel the jealousy so that it can be owned and not projected. So that bridge is, it's
Yeah.
a lot of courage to go through that one.
Yeah, because it's like Marie explains it. It's like this huge energy bursting through your heart, all the blood going to your heart. Yes, it's huge.
Yeah, I think I'm still in judgment of it, so I'm not allowing even the expression. I'm catching it when it comes, like Selena's catching her thoughts and going, I accept you, but I'm not doing that. I'm going, uh-oh, it's still there.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to
Go
the room.
away.
Oh no. But instead, what you're saying, Mila, is just allow myself almost just to get into it. Like, I don't want to be nice. I don't want to love. It's going to take stuff away from me. They're going to all have everything and I am the lowest anyway. And I don't go into that more.
And if your prayer is, God, help me own the emotion, and then whatever comes up, own it. Because even Marie, as she tells her story, is owning the emotion and intensity of that jealousy.
Yeah.
And because I'm compassionate towards children, and now I'm learning to have compassionate to this one, but because I'm compassionate towards children, I will ask, can you show me the child who has this injury? Show me the child with this jealous emotion, because I can sit with her and say, talk to me, I'll hear you. So that way, at least I'm doing the acceptance bit that Selena is connecting to. I accept you as you are. Not only that, I want to love and care for you because you're hurting.
Yeah.
I think any sinner being treated that way will let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's remembering that I've done that with my parents, and I still I did that to Dave and get around jealousy with my mum, that I was just trying to see her as a little child, a little girl all the time, but really seeing that for myself and endeavoring to see that in other people all the time too, however old they are. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for that. So Virginia.
I've noticed through reading this chapter that I wasn't even naming these emotions. I was just so ashamed of them. I just would feel a little bit of anger. And just push that. And I've just been noticing what is this anger about, and actually looking into it, and this seeing how lovingly Marie is being treated is helping me to accept and not judge myself so much. It's really hard though, because I've judged these emotions actually quite harshly. I used to see them a lot in my mother, and if I ever expressed them, it just was not met with love, that's for sure. So I've hidden them. I've hidden them and really thought that they weren't there. And I just thought I was feeling some anger towards a certain person or in a situation. And now I'm seeing it, that there's more to that anger. And when I have gone into the jealousy a little bit, it feels like fear. It feels fearful that I'm going to be ignored, left behind. They're seeing that I'm not good enough. They're judging me that I'm not good enough. And that's what's been coming up, and I haven't been able to stay in it for too long. So I want to be more aware of I'm sure I have the same love around me that Marie has, even here on earth. I want to feel it. I want to feel it so that I can lean into it and not judge myself so much, because it's actually been making me really tired lately, like really tired.
And I feel like we have so many distortions around allowing ourselves to feel these things because they're bad feelings. You're a bad girl if you feel those feelings, that we push them down. I noticed even today, when I let myself feel jealousy today, it was like, it was horrible. But then it was like I could feel my guides being able to help me more, just because I let myself feel that more. So I feel like if you let yourself go into that more, Virginia, then they'll be able to help you. That same thing for me when I mentioned about self-responsibility. It's like when I humble myself to feel the truth that I'm fucked off with this, I want vengeance, I want revenge, I am jealous. When I let myself feel that, then somehow they're able to help me more.
I've actually felt a lot of, I've even noticed that there's an entitlement to the anger, that I'm not being treated as I should be treated, and that I'm entitled to that. And I actually noticed that. I was like, whoa, ooh. And so there's that judgment again, right, of myself. And but it's been very enlightening. I've read this chapter once a couple of years ago. Like, I read this book, and just reading it again has been such a different experience this time.
And I really recommend reading it out loud, especially when Marie's telling her story and really getting into feeling it, like express how she's feeling when you read it.
I actually had to kind of skim it, so I have to go back and really read it.
Yeah, well, that's why I didn't want to read it for days.
Basically, what Lisa had said earlier, when she owned her emotion, she also dropped into fears, because addictions are addictions. They're all about covering over fears. So Virginia, you mentioned quite a few fears that started to come up. And then you can kind of give yourself a break and say, these are the fears driving the addiction. Okay, these are scary emotions, and I'm going to have to prepare myself to process the fear. And then, but then the key word was what Selena mentioned earlier, which was acceptance. There's something very powerful that happens when you come to acceptance. And now our guides are ready. And actually, that's what the next workshop is going to be on. I'm watching what happens with acceptance, because I'm curious why it works. It's like, why does it work? But I also want to ask one question. How many people here have jealous, competitive mothers? What else was going to happen to us if this is, we never had a chance to not have these addictions or not have this. And not only that, we absorb the emotion of jealousy from our environment. It's like, not even like, I already absorbed the emotion of being jealous. It's just going to start acting. And on top of it, we had mothers that competed, and I, as a mother, competitive with my daughter. I know that.
I noticed today for myself when I realized, and this was a bawling moment, when I realized this, because I felt jealous in certain situations. It's usually around being rejected or rejecting another, because then I get it thrown towards me. So I noticed that when I felt jealous, it's just been like it's not mine. I remember I felt like I'm battling with it. Like, where is this coming from? I can't. It's just, this is well before divine truth. I felt this, that where's it come from? And today I had this real feeling that I wasn't judging my mom. It was like, okay, I can feel that it's really come from her, and it's made me act in certain ways, or mostly not act, but mostly have feelings and thoughts about. But it really was a relief to me that I realized, oh, it's something that's entered me rather than it's mine. It's entered me, and I just need to feel it, allow myself to feel it, and it's going to go away from me. And I've attracted a situation, literally I had concrete evidence this weekend that showed me something I was feeling and didn't realize until I had this concrete thing that showed me this has been coming towards me, but it's so insidious. Jealousy can be so insidious that it's not so easy always to unravel it and dig it out. Yeah. So Selena, love to hear from you.
So what I find really been working for me is if I get really specific and I use really strong language,
Yeah.
like I accept that I have rage towards women that lie to protect themselves to my detriment. And and then when I'm not truthful, I get a little bit of love. I go, oh, you like that? You don't like it when I go, oh, I'm such a shit and I shouldn't do that. And that's a terrible feeling and you shouldn't do that. No, nobody loves me then. But when I say this horrible truth, oh, I get a little love. Oh, you like that? I'm going to keep doing this. So I do it, and I've done it a few times. And then I finally, after doing it a few times, I go, my mom did that all the time. And then you can feel the grief. Like she lied to protect herself to my detriment.
Yeah.
So I am feeling that towards these women, and it had nothing to do with them. Because I thought, people have lied to me before. And they just lie. People lie,
Yeah.
I don't feel that rage, but it's a different kind of lie, but that kind of lie. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really woken up in me this last week or so, especially of seeing, well, okay, that's I'm attracting it to me, but where is it in me? Mm-hmm. Why am I attracting? And yes, of course, it goes back, and you see then layers and layers and layers of how you've been ignoring. Finally, you realize it's way back there.
Well, that's right. Because and before you pass it off, it's just this little trivial emotion that you just smash that right down, right? Just smash it down. And then when you really allow yourself to have it, you go, oh, this is freaking huge.
And emotion. Also, it feels like, because of course there's going to be so many spirits hanging around with those emotions, that it feels like they get the message more. Like, okay, we've been found out.
Yes. Yeah. That yes.
Okay, Virginia?
Thanks. I heard the word competition thrown in there. I have such a distaste for competition. So is this part of like jealousy, rage, and competition? Is there such a thing as a good or friendly competitions? Is there such a thing as good competition?
That's a good question to ask guides.
And in the Wonder, what's it called? The Wanderer in the Spirit Lands. Is that the book?
Yeah.
There's a bit in there where they're competing, but they're talking about competition being to become more competent in something rather than fighting with each other to be better.
Oh,
does that make sense? Like it helps when we do something together, when we're not wanting to be better than the other. It's just that helps us up our game a little bit.
Yeah. Because I'm taking a course right now in teaching kids yoga, younger children. And there's such a thing as healthy competition. And when that was said, I could just feel the rage welling up in me and the resistance. I'm like, no, there is not such a thing. And I've seen so much harm come from that. I don't even want to go into it. I don't feel that I can teach it like that, like you're saying, to be, and then there needs to be like a good base for that. And I'm going, is it just me? Is it because of my emotions that I'm feeling there's no such thing as a healthy competition?
But because you have a lot of emotion about it, as you start to process your emotion, you also will receive the truth about it. So keep getting the emotions out, and then you will receive, if you desire to, the truth about God's perspective on competition, if there's even such a thing. And I would like to keep time in mind. I also have a question to ask Afra. So where are we at with this one? We are kind of.
I think we're good.
I'm very proud of how we discussed the third one. We were a lot softer, a lot gentler, a lot like, it's just another injury. We've got this. We can share. We can talk about it. I have a lot of injuries around jealousy and competition and power and all that. A lot of injuries. So yeah, very proud of how we did that.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
And the question I want to ask is, and this was something that Mary, in her discussion, kind of helped me see what was going on in the chapter. So what I'm seeing is that when the law of compensation hit Marie, and very understandably, that was me, I would do the same thing. I'd be like, what is going on here? I'm frozen, I'm cold, I can't move, it's all dark. What is going on? Get me out of here. So the question I want to ask Afra is, how can I surrender and accept law of compensation so that I won't struggle like Marie did, or struggle less? Because Marie didn't understand that was law of compensation. So she fought it. So how can I accept and surrender to law of compensation so that it can do the cleansing work it's trying to do? That's the question I'm suggesting we ask Afra.
Okay. So this is we're still recording. Do you want to keep recording for this question?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Lisa?
So I've just been reading the Paget messages where it's talking a lot about the higher laws can overcome the law of compensation. So my questioning is more along the lines of, how do I begin to really engage this law of forgiveness? So that's where my soul's yearning is, like, I'm not wanting to accept the law of compensation. I want to.
Exactly. And so we are getting hit by a law of compensation, but we always get away from it. We're going to have to at least go into law of compensation and then engage the higher law. My suspicion is that we are avoiding our law of compensation all the time, but if you could see the gift of it, we could at least not push away from it, at least put our toes in it to go, here's law of compensation. Now, what else can I ask for to work through it? But the avoidance of law of compensation is in itself creating a whole bunch of other sins.
Yeah, it's the point. The point is the acceptance and surrender, because we're having compensation constantly, because we're sinning constantly. Yes. So, but once we accept it, now we can develop this forgiveness and repentance more. Yeah.
And Lisa can be quick about it. Quick.
You can tell I'm really uncomfortable with this law of compensation grinding. I am really resistant to this. So this is probably my question that I really need to ask.
Because it feels like punishment. And we have
it just is so intense, and it's what I've probably been going through this last intensively.
Absolutely frightening when you read what her experience was. And it's like, ooh, so how do I surrender to that? Can you help me? So let's ask the question, let's see what we get, and go from there.
Okay, cool.
Okay, we're ready. Got some answers. Okay, who wants to start? Alicia. Oh, you mute, I think. Yeah.
The yellow. I got immediately, be a curious child. So ask lots of questions like, what's this for? This is interesting. How come that's happened? did I do something out of harmony with God's laws here? But as a curious child, I felt like, how is God helping me in this? What's going on here? And also I had a feeling of how we tend to look at compensation as a bad thing.
Yes.
Whereas not realizing there are benefits and corrections.
Okay.
And I think that we have distortions around benefits, like, oh, you were just lucky. Well, that was a fluke. This sort of attitude, and we don't really acknowledge them and don't have gratitude for the benefits. And the benefits could just be that I no longer feel jealous anymore. That would be a great benefit.
Yes,
so I think that we dismiss things that maybe have left us, for example, or anyway, the benefits. I think that's an important thing to be aware of. And also it has a feeling of, I feel like we have a distortion around compensation. It's like, oh, I've got to work hard to get to where I'm supposed to go, to be a good girl, to do the right thing. I've got to work hard at it. So that feels like I'll only get compensated if I work hard somehow.
Right.
Like in the beneficial way.
Yeah.
So I think there's just lots of distortions around it.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, next. Selena. Yeah, Selena, go ahead. I can't hear you.
Yeah, I know. Virginia was up first, I think. So whatever. Okay. Should I go? Okay, I'll go. Less thinking and more emotion. Keep accepting everything about where you are, what you attract, what you physically feel, what you emotionally feel, and all of it, all of it. Accept it all, the good, if you're truthful and you get some love, accept that.
Positive love compensation.
Always. Yeah, always, all of it, see it all, feel it all, as, yeah.
That's what Alicia was talking about. Right. Okay, beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty simple. Just keep feeling it and
accepting.
Yeah, and accepting and accepting the good stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Virginia.
I actually just got this feeling of love in it, and that I need for me to remember that will allow me to accept.
Okay.
And open up to what is really being taught to me, and how I'm brought back to love. That's the laws were created.
Yeah, beautiful.
And they are loving. And so if I can remember that and keep that in mind about God's laws, that it will help me to open up and surrender to it.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, Michael.
I don't think I ask Afar, but I kind of get in an Afar brainstorming state that, that I just don't go there normally. Okay. So the principle is law of compensation, or LOC, is always happening to me.
Okay.
So what is in this moment for me? And here I'm here on Earth, so I have a limited ability to distance myself or avoid it or ignore it, right? So I have mechanisms for, well, first of all, I should stop and ask, what is happening to me?
Yeah.
Be aware, I have mechanisms for avoiding it. Like I explain it, or I'll say I'm sacrificing for somebody else, or I'll blame someone, or I'll put up with it. And then there are emotions that should be good triggers for me, good flags: anger, resentment, blame, feeling powerless, being unhappy. So I should ask, what is my law of compensation? Which law of love am I breaking?
Yeah.
I hope if I ask that, I'm also solving laws of truth. But if I ask, what law of love am I breaking?
Wow.
What is my LOC in this moment? How is it working on me right now that I can access in some way?
how is this helping me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
That's a good one. Thank you. All right. Lisa, would you like to share?
I was really resistive and I just needed to tantrum for the first few minutes of this question.
Yeah.
I really am mad at the law of compensation right now.
Nice.
I did
Okay.
not realize that. And it triggered some reminders of this feeling of when you're in the hells, you're there forever and you're stuck, and the feeling you can never be forgiven, and how my mom would hold me prisoner for my wrongs that I supposedly committed. And I'm doing the same thing to myself.
Ouch.
So
Okay.
then what I did get was just very brief. Welcome the pain, learn from it. It's there to show you the way. And then it becomes, ironically, much less painful when you stop fighting it and when you accept it, or beating yourself up about how you created it for yourself. So just there's these side things that are adding to
Yeah.
the fighting. Yeah, that's me not accepting and just allowing the law and allowing in the pain and like, yep, there's my consequence. Okay. But then I go into the self-judgment. So that's where I need
And I get angry into why am I being punished? Because as a child, I was punished for my parents' law of attraction and their emotions being triggered. So therefore it wasn't appropriate. And most times I have no connection between cause and effect, going, wait, what did I do? Did I even do something? And why would this action result to this consequence? I don't see the math. So we have all of these blocks to then being able to access law of compensation. I just get rebellious. Law of compensation? No.
Exactly.
You're punished.
Spot on.
It was
Ditto.
yeah. So
Ditto.
so it makes sense. And it took my guides. My guides were very patient and constantly telling me that hell was helpful for them. It was a good thing for them to go through it. And it took them a while to convince me that it was a very, very good thing for them to go through. It's a good place. It is not punishment. All of God's laws are restorative, not punishing. And that's why in book 2, when Afra said, hell is a hospital for sin-sick soul, I took to it like a glued to it because I really needed that reframing. I can see the point of a hospital. It's there to care for something that's damaged my soul. My soul needs care. Whatever you can do to reframe your perspective on that. Go
Can
ahead.
I just say one more thing to add to that? And that is the minute I go into fighting or blaming the self, what we named at the beginning, the blame, the guilt, and the self-judgment, I'm at war with myself. When I'm no longer at one with myself, then spirit attack comes in, all kinds of stuff, you get swayed. So it's like to really catch those and go, like what Selena's doing. No, I accept.
Yeah.
I accept that I'm having this pain right now because I overate yet again. Okay, I accept it. I accept you for overeating. You went and stuffed yourself because you were scared or you didn't want to feel.
Yeah.
I accept you. I love you for it.
Yeah. Well
And
done.
you'll eventually learn and not want to do it, probably.
Well done. Thank you. Alicia?
Yeah, because I think we tend to try to push ourselves, even though we know we want to use our will and not our willpower, but we do tend to push ourselves.
Yeah.
But it's so different when suddenly you notice, oh, I didn't have a desire to eat that thing today or watch that thing or whatever it is. It's
Oh, and she froze. Okay.
okay, froze. I think I froze then.
Yeah, you did. Can you go back?
I did. I was just saying about how when we're pushing ourselves, it's such a different feeling to when, oh, my desires changed. I don't want that anymore, or I do want that now. It's just such a loving feeling to yourself when that happens. It's beautiful. And also I was having this vision as Lisa was talking of, I don't know if you know kelp seaweed that has roots down into the ocean bed too, like it's like a tree in the ocean. And so it's just the compensation felt like I'm going here and I'm going there, but I'm rooted in God's love. I'm rooted in God's laws.
Lovely.
But I'm allowing myself, oh yeah, that's a beautiful benefit. That hurt a bit, never mind. But I'm not struggling with it. I'm just allowing it.
Thank you. That's beautiful. I love that we received emotions in our answers. So it's kind of softening us. Some of the answers I also got a list. Some of the answer was that trust that all of God's laws are cleansing and are of highest good. So if I can trust that, it'll help. Be curious, accept it so that I can even be curious about it. So for me to even ask the question, I have to at least experience the law of compensation and then go, oh, that is pain. Why? So again, the same answers we all got. If you can even accept it, you have to accept it to even want to ask questions about it. And when you ask questions about it, you'll learn. Pain breaks down the body. So see it that if you can experience your law of compensation and release it, you're releasing burden from your body because it breaks down your body, all of those stored up stuff. And then also to feel like, I'm experiencing law of compensation. I'm releasing penalty. It's already working through me. It's over. Like Alicia said, oh, jealousy is over. I'll take this pain anytime. The jealousy is no longer happening. It's being worked through. And then to also ask, how can I care for myself in this pain? So even though you're going through a law of compensation, you're experiencing a lot of pain, to then ask, how can I care for myself? How can I attend to myself so that I can endure and carry on, continue with it? That's what I got. So we got really good answers. That was really good. Yeah, I like that if you can, to start with, accept the law of compensation, then you can start asking, wonder what I did this time. And then when you're aware of it, then you can engage law of repentance. Lisa?
And also sometimes it's just that I'm going through the pain of releasing, going through forgiveness too. So that just feels yucky at times too, when you're going through releasing, grieving the harm that was done from the past. And so sometimes it's just that you're in a healing process and you're feeling yucky.
Yeah, it's all pain regardless. All right. Thank you very much. This was really good. And then we have one more next week and then we're going to take a break. Well done, Alicia. It was very good.
I'd like to just add to say thank you to all our guides, to the players and everybody for coming and listening with us.